Hello everyone. Today I'm going to teach how a teacher can explain if-else in Python to students. Okay, so when you're teaching if-else in Python, there are two things which you should consider. It's not only about if-else, but anything. There is a concept behind it and there is a syntax. So what is the concept behind this if-else condition? Okay, so we need to start with a real world example. For example, you ask the student, okay, can you please go out of the room? Then he will say that he will either go out or he will say that he will say something. Okay, so now let's assume that you ask the student, if the door is closed, what will you do? So the student will say that I will open the door and go. Now you ask this question, if you ask a robot to do it, what will happen? So the student will say that, okay, the robot will go to the door, and if it is open it will go out, or if it is closed it will open the door and it will go. Okay, so now the question comes like, do you think the robot will actually do it if you don't tell that this is what you should do? So there they get a confusion, or they try to think about that particular thing. Okay, if I say something to a robot, then I have to be very specific about the conditions. Okay, so what's the condition in that particular thing? The door is open or the door is closed. So if the door is open, walk away, or if the door is closed, open the door and then walk away. So there are two conditions, right? Then how do we talk about that particular thing? In, like, let's assume that you are writing a program for a computer to do the same thing. Okay, so that's what we're going to learn here. So in that way they've kind of understood that, okay, if something happens or something happens. Okay, so you say that in the conditional, I mean in the Python, you have something called if, and then you check the condition. Okay, so here this is a condition. So what is a condition in in Python? It's not only in Python, any programming language. What is a condition? It can be either a test expression, or in the case of Python, it can be truthy or falsy statement, or a value. Okay. So what is a truthy, or let's learn first what is a test expression. Okay. For example, if you're writing x greater than 5, okay, if x greater than 5, this becomes a test expression. So let's assume that we wrote x equal to 10. Okay, so what is x greater than 5? It will evaluate to true. Okay, and then you write another condition. Okay, if x less than 10, okay, what will happen? This particular condition, if it is, it will check, because the value is 10, it is not less than 10. Okay, so it will be false. Okay, so now let's assume that, if the value is greater than 5, you need to do something, and if the value is less than 10, you have to do something. So do we have to write two conditions, or you can write else condition? Okay, here, so if this is f greater than 5, you do something, print x is greater than 5, or else you write print x is less than 11. Okay, or maybe whatever you want to write. So the idea is like that, you can have a test expression. Okay, so you need to tell the student what is an expression before you go in deep into the if statement. Okay, so that's a point about test expression. Okay, and then there is another point, like, that an expression can be something like this. Okay, x plus y greater than 2, and x plus x minus y greater than 3. So the idea is that I would suggest, don't confuse the student with all these kind of expressions when you are teaching if condition. Only focus on what is a test expression, where you have only one thing, or for let's say example, x greater than 5, or x equal to 0, or something like this, and then talk about this truthy or falsy thing. So what is a truthy or falsy thing? For example, if I write something like, okay, if I write something like cyber square, okay, this, like this, if I write, it will be true. Okay, so how do you know that this particular statement is true? You do something like boolean and then cyber square. Okay, so if you do the same thing cyber square, this will be true. Okay, and then if you do the same thing with 0, like for example, if I write if 0, then this will not get executed, print 0, this print 0 will not get executed, because if 0 becomes false. Okay, So here, like if you are, everybody knows if I write if true, then definitely this is going to execute. Okay, because this evaluates to true when you apply boolean true. Okay, so when you teach about if condition, make sure that this is very clear for the student, because once you say a real world example, it's very clear for the student, because if is very similar to what we speak in English if. Okay, and the if is else also is particularly, it's very clear for the student, but most of the time student don't understand what happens here. Okay, what is the condition, and if the condition is true, how the condition is evaluate. Okay, so focus on only one thing and then tell about what is test expression and truthy or falsy statements. Okay, now let's see how this will happen, like in the real world when you're programming, how this will come up, we will see.
Detail. Okay, so this particular statement, as you can see, door open equal to 0, and then when I run this particular one, what happens? Okay, see, it has become false, the door is closed. So this particular expression become false and this else condition is executed. That's why what has happened here. Now let's assume that if I'm giving here what happens. Okay, now it has become true. So what you have to understand is this particular concept, a lot of people, a lot of students wouldn't be knowing. So make sure that this particular thing is very clear for the student. For example, if I'm giving here cyber square, okay, see, this is true and door is open. So any value will have a boolean a value associated with it, and it can be found out by boolean door of that particular thing. Okay, so now if I give here now let's see what is a false statement. For example, I'm giving here an empty dictionary. Okay, now let's see what is there. See, as you can see, it is false and the door is closed. So whenever you have an empty list or empty tuple, everything will become false. Okay, and now let's assume that I'm going to give here in the list, I give something. Okay, now let's see how it is running. Okay, see, it is true. So anything which is empty will becomes false and it will get executed. I mean, the else condition will get executed, and if anything has any value other than 0, it will become true and this will get executed. Okay, now everyone knows that if I give true, what will happen? It's pretty straightforward, right? It will become true, and then if I give false, if I give it will, sorry, if I give false, this will be false, and then the condition will get executed. Okay, so my point is that when you're teaching the student, make sure that they understand this concept of this gets evaluated as true or false and then goes to it. Okay, now let's see the normal scenario that we can discuss, that is test expression. Okay, test expression, or you can call it condition or whatever. Okay, condition. So let's assume that if I'm writing x equal to 10, and then if x greater than if x less than 5, print, let's assume I'm writing print, okay, x is less than 15. Okay, now if I write this thing, what will happen? X is less than 15 is printed because this is evaluated and this value became true or false. As I said earlier, let's not confuse the student with more and or and other things when you're teaching the if else condition. Now let's assume like if it is not less than 15, what will happen? Okay, x is not less than 15. Okay, let's assume that I made this as 20. Okay, now let's see what will happen. Okay, see, x is not less than 15 is printed. So what happened? This was evaluated, and then it went to this else condition. So if this is not executed, what will happen? This will come here. Okay, that's what has happened here. And now we have a pretty old example. When I write whether it is a positive number or not. Okay, how do you find out whether it is a positive number or not? This exam, in this example. Okay, now if I'm writing x, okay, equal to 10, and if it is greater than 0, x is positive, x is positive, and then else I'm writing x is negative. So now everybody will, now you have to teach the student in this particular way, because some of the students will get a doubt saying that okay, whether what will happen if it is 0. That time we can say that there are three conditions. One is either it is greater than 0 or equal to 0, or it is less than 0. So how will you do it? So you can say that you can just add an elif condition where x equal to 0, and then print x is 0. Okay, so the idea is that when you are teaching students about if else condition and if elif condition, you have to make sure that they get this doubt, like, okay, what will I do if this comes? Then you answer, I mean, try to answer the syntax. Okay, so I'm going to run this again. So it will run x is positive. Now if I make it 0, it will run like this, x is 0. And if I say that it is -1, x is negative. Okay, so that's it about the if else condition and along with elif in Python. So again, I'll just memorize or I'll just explain it again. Okay, so I will just evaluate. Okay, I will just okay. I will just revise what I just told. One is you have to start with the real world example, the door closed and open, and then you talk about what is a test expression, and then you talk about what is truth and falsy, and then stick to one condition and make sure that they are very clear with it before you go into the detailed one. Okay, thank you very much.